I think Dabo Swinney gave up on Saturday night. At least if you're a Clemson fan, that should be what you hope happened, because the alternative is worse. Clemson scored a touchdown against Louisville when they were trailing on Saturday night with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Louisville was up 26. I guess that's not true. Louisville had scored 26 points. And Clemson scored a touchdown to make it 26-13 with exactly 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. 26-13. So Clemson was down by 13 points before the extra point. If you kick the extra point, you're down 12. If you go for 2 and get it, you're down 11. I don't think you need to be a mathematician to figure out why one of those two is entirely more preferable than the other. If you go down 11, you can then score a touchdown, 2-point conversion, kick a field goal, and you are tied by putting everything together and not allowing more points from Louisville, which they ended up doing. But the principle of the matter is if you go for 2 and you miss it, you're still down 2 touchdowns, right? You're still down 2. You got to score 2 touchdowns to get back and either tie or take the lead. But if you kick the extra point, no matter what, you have to score 2 touchdowns in a game with 6 minutes remaining that you had already only scored 2 touchdowns. So with 6 minutes to go, having the chance to turn it into a touchdown and field goal game, Clemson kicked the extra point to ensure that they had to score 2 more touchdowns. So either the options are Dabo Swinney gave up and said, hey, 6 minutes to go, we're down, we're not coming back, let's get out of here and take the loss, which I don't think is the case, because they were still chucking the pigskin with 12 seconds left in the game, even though they were down 2 scores. So I don't get the impression that Dabo Swinney gave up. The alternative is Clemson wasn't smart enough to realize that you got to go for 2 in that situation, down by 13 before the extra point. And that should be the scarier option. And I guess maybe that's too harsh or critical. The alternative could be that they just got lost in the game. That no matter how you phrase it, it's coaching malpractice to put yourself in a situation where no matter what, you have to score 2 touchdowns. Because if you go for 2 in that situation, and this is the common kind of like what people think is conventional wisdom, but it isn't, is that if I go for 2 and miss, we've used our best 2-point conversion play and we didn't get it. Okay, well, you should probably come into a game with more than 1 2-point conversion play. That, especially if the game goes to overtime and you get into a situation where it's just alternating 2-point conversion plays. I don't know if you remember, Penn State and Illinois played a really long overtime game. It's been a couple of years now, maybe 3 years. And it literally got to the point where they're running just like toss sweep. Just like, this is one of our base plays that we put in the first day of practice. And you know what? Hell with it. We'll try that and see if that works, because they had exhausted all of their 2-point conversion play options. So I'm not saying you need to have 25 plays on your sheet that you're like, I feel great that we will convert a 2-point conversion with this play. But you should have more than 1. You should have more than 1. And also, in that situation, if Clemson goes for 2 and doesn't get it, okay, you now know that you need to score 2 touchdowns, rather than take the chance that, like, hey, best case scenario, we go for 2 right here, get it. Now we're down 11. The next drive, if we get a stop, we can do whatever we want. If we need to kick a field goal, we can do that. Because we know that it's going to come down to, we need to score a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, and a field goal. We need at least 11 points. But if we score 2 touchdowns, we win the damn game. And instead of taking that off-ramp, instead of taking that path and saying, like, hey, This is the easiest, quickest, best path to victory. Clemson said, nah, we'll kick the field goal, trot the field goal unit on, and make sure that we have to score 2 more touchdowns in a game with 6 minutes remaining, where we have a couple timeouts, 2-minute timeout, where we've only scored 2 touchdowns to begin with through the first 54 minutes of the game. We'll just bank on the fact that we're going to do that. So the options are Dabo Swinney gave up, or he completely mismanaged the end of a game that now takes Clemson's path and control their own destiny for the ACC title away from them. I'll let you decide which one you think is worse. But I know how I feel about it. And I know that there will be Clemson fans in the comments that will defend Dabo Swinney till the end of time like he's some sort of cult leader. And I don't get it. But that's a different discussion for a different day. But you cannot deny that at the end of this game, he screwed it up. There's no way around it. There is no ifs, ands, buts, excuses. Well, actually, technically, no. He got it wrong. He screwed it up. Does it matter at the end of the day? No, because Louisville put another touchdown on and they win 33-21. And I told you last week that Clemson needed to be on upset alert with Louisville because while they were 5-3, their 3 losses were to teams that had a combined 2 losses. Notre Dame has a loss and SMU has a loss. So Louisville, while their record might not look as great on the surface, they are a tough team. And Clemson lost at home to a team that they probably shouldn't have lost to. And after the game, Dabo Swinney said, hey, it looked like we were outcoached there, and that's my fault. Yeah, it is. Because you did get outcoached. And for somebody who's won national championships, who's one of the few people in the sport who was an active coach with a national championship, to get that as wildly wrong as they did, I don't know how that sits well with Clemson fans. But it just is a bad look. And I mentioned on Twitter, I saw I was listening to the Clemson radio game, the game on the radio on Sirius XM, and their announcers were like, well, shrinking the lead to 11 doesn't do anything for you here. What? How do you get to that conclusion? It's simple math, and yet they couldn't do it in the moment. And I find that somewhat terrifying if I was a fan of the orange and purple. It's Sunday, so let's name our Sunday Stiff Arm Trophy update. This is what my Heisman Trophy ballot would look like if I had to submit it today. It's unchanged from last week. I would still vote for Ashton Jeanty, but the gap is shrinking. Ashton Jeanty only averaged 4.8 yards per carry in a win over San Diego State on Friday night. He had 31 carries for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is still going all right. He's got 20 touchdowns, 1,500 yards rushing, averaging 8 yards per carry. So Ashton Jeanty would be my Heisman Trophy winner right now. But I think Dylan Gabriel closing the gap just a little bit. He's thrown for 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, threw for a touchdown on a win over Michigan, ran for another. And Cam Ward is coming on strong, too. Cam Ward threw 5 touchdowns in a win over Duke and has some pretty impressive numbers. And as the Canes stay in the college football playoff race, in the ACC championship race, and you start to ask and question how and why are they doing this, Cam Ward is a big part of it. 29 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3,100 yards, and he threw for 5 touchdowns and 400 yards in the win over Duke. That was another one of those games that I mentioned with Clemson that I said, hey, Clemson's got to be on upset alert. Miami had to be on upset alert too. They were leading by 1 in the fourth quarter. They win by 22 because they scored 21 points in the final quarter. So it looks like Duke got their asses kicked with a 53-31 loss, but Miami scores 3 touchdowns to bust that lead open in the fourth quarter, like in the middle and late stages of the fourth quarter. And Cam Ward leads them to a big-time win over what I think is a good Duke team. So Cam Ward shrinking the gap with Dylan Gabriel shrinking the gap to Ashton Genty. But that is what my Heisman Trophy ballot would look like today. Want to know what yours would look like? Let us know in the comments down below. Let's have that conversation. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we are pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.